It's a Portuguese confession, and it comes from Jose. Well, let's just say it comes from Jose, shall we? And there's two things to say. First of all, he gets straight to it. There's none of that.
Really?
Father Simon, back in the day, I remember. Do you remember when I turned on the radio and there was Slade and all that kind of stuff? There's none of that.
Oh,
he
right.
gets straight to it.
Okay, good for him.
And it's sort of slightly. It's not broken English, but it's clearly, Jose's thinking about it.
Yeah.
Okay, so here we go. Jose says, Father Simon and his team of sinners. I must start my confession by telling you I am from Portugal. I came to the UK around 18 years ago. This confession relates to the earlier 1980s, however, when I was still living in Portugal. This is the beginning of the first cremations back in Portugal. So we're back into the...
Okay.
I told you
it's
it's got straight to it.
Yeah.
Straight to the funeral groove.
The first of the cremations.
First cremations back in Portugal. There were no specific and dedicated crematoriums. Cremations were done in specific areas of just a few cemeteries and with some rustic equipment. A big contrast to today's reality. Anyway, it's a little...
Okay.
It's a bit of a grim start.
I mean, rustic equipment. Okay.
Also at the time, it was not very common to do cremations, as people had a strong sense of tradition in Portugal, and that meant that relatives had to be buried. So apart from being, at the time, rare to do cremations, it was also, in some cases, a bit hit and miss, as equipment sometimes failed. I mean, this is making a lot of people very nervous.
Okay.
Things just went a bit awry, says Jose. If you walk now, this is where we take another left turn.
Oh.
If you remember, around this time, it was also very common for people to have CB radios.
Oh, yeah.
Citizen band in the car, mobile radios that everyone used with pride. Breaker 19, this is Rubber Duck. You got a copy on me, Big Ben. Come on, as we didn't say in Lisbon.
Definitely didn't.
It was, says Jose, the kind of Facebook or Twitter of the era. I had a CB radio station, and my call sign was fire. And everywhere I went, I took my portable CB radio with me. So then, I'm afraid to say I received some bad news, and that was that a dear friend of mine had passed away, and of course, I was going to go to the ceremony. I arrived early, and after some queries, I was directed to the correct area of the cemetery. There was another service going on at the moment with another family going through the service. I stayed a while to see what to expect, because I hadn't seen one before. And then I realized that the service for my friend would start in a few moments. So I decided to fill the time by using my CB radio. Why not? I could see if anyone else was online.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Like we didn't say. Anyway, I never went anywhere without it. So I stretched the antenna against the wall of the crematorium. You might remember it was always a long wire when it was in place. Anyway... So when the aerial was up, I started to call on the Channel 11, and that was the general call channel. That's where you went if you just wanted to say hello to people. Of course, all the following was in Portuguese, but I'm translating it for the benefit of your listeners.
Okay.
What I said into Channel 11 went like this. Hello, anyone there? This is fire. Can anyone hear me? Anyone there? I repeated this a few times with some space between the calls to see if someone will reply to my request. Hello, anyone there? This is fire. Can anyone hear me? Come on. Then it happened. From inside the building, all hell broke loose. I started to see people running. I saw people screaming. Some looked as if they'd seen a ghost. Relatives were holding on to each other. Panic everywhere. So quickly I switched off my CB radio, put it back in the clip on my belt under my coat. I ran to the scene, tried to calm people down, as well as I tried to make out some sense of what was going on. After some time, I managed to get one explanation, and that brings me to my confession. Apparently, as the coffin was sliding into the crematorium vault, my CB radio interfered with the audio system. Family and friends of the deceased, as the coffin was going in, heard this voice saying, hello? Anyone there? This is fire. Can anyone hear me? Anyone there? Come on. So all the mourners were convinced that the deceased was not dead and was calling for help because there was fire. One of the relatives even said to me, it's amazing he's speaking English because of the word fire. Anyway, obviously I didn't mention the fact that I had been on my CB radio and it was me. I tried to calm people, that at that moment, but they were starting to be angry with the workers at the creme because they wanted the crematorium stopped because clearly the guy in the he was shouting through the speakers. Anyway, I calmly went out of there and until today have never said a word about this. Of course, the offer of a smart speaker made me confess, says Josie. But I hope that no one listens to Greatest Hits in Portugal. I don't know. I'm sure they do. And that there is no one from that particular family living here. I look for forgiveness not from the family, but from the deceased for causing an uproar at his or her funeral. And also the family of my friend, because I ended up not getting to his service, what with all the fuss and bother that I had caused at the other one. And that's from Jose. So we're back in the funeral groove, but it's an unusual tale of the early stages of the crematorium movement in Portugal, marrying in an unfortunate way with the CB radio stretched across the actual hall from outside. Sister Susie speaking from the pub with Washbourne, or whatever it's called.
Well, Jose, do you know what? I had a CB radio. I found it in my dad's garage, and I did use it, and I do like it. But there is a time and a place, and I'm not sure the crematorium was the time and the place to get your portable CD radio out and have a go. So for me, I'm afraid not forgiven on this occasion.
Brother Matthew.
I think we all tend to forget this, that, it was a big deal at the time to have a CB radio, and I'm sure if you had one, you were trying to use it at every opportunity. So, and it always feels to me like the 80s was the golden era for confessions because of CB radios. The number of great confessions we've had because of CB radios. So it is for that reason I'm gonna forgive, and also because he's asking for forgiveness from the deceased, and I would argue probably bigger fish to fry for the deceased. I would have thought. Yeah, I'm going to forgive.